What's going on, everybody? Welcome to After Prison Show, and today I want to tell you guys about the top 5 longest prison sentences ever. Now, I first got the idea to do this video in a recent prison story that I shared with you guys, where I mentioned a guy by the name of Google. Actually, his real name is Aaron. His prison nickname was Goo, but Goo was short for Google. And I've talked about that guy a couple of times here before on After Prison Show, a guy that I was locked up with who would end up getting sentenced to like 210 years in prison. And for me, that is the longest prison sentence of anybody that I know who I met while locked up receiving. And it was me thinking about the amount of time that this guy received that made me really want to see, are there people who have received more time than that? And because to me, 210 years, that is just a crazy amount of time to think about. And it was me researching the longest prison sentences ever that would make me realize that 210 years, that ain't nothing in comparison to some of the folks I'm going to be telling you guys about in this video. So it's with all of that being mentioned, that what do you say we do something that we haven't done in a long time here on After Prison Show? Dive head first into this video. Folks, the first person to make this list has to be this individual named Goo, who I've told you guys about a few different times in the past here on After Prison Show. And again, like I had said, 210 years is nothing in comparison to the amount of time that some of the folks have received who I will be telling you about today. But there are a couple of interesting things that I want to include while including Goo, aka Google, in this video. First, starting with this guy's mugshot, something that I've never shared with you guys before and something that I actually just recently ran across. You know, I've talked about the way this guy looks in the past, how he was this tall, lanky, goofy type of guy who didn't really have no fight game whatsoever, and the fact that he was getting ready to have to serve 210 years in prison, the rest of his natural life in prison, the thought of that to me was absolutely crazy, and I could not even begin to imagine what prison was actually going to be like for this guy. But I want to take this moment and introduce you to Goo via his mugshot. This right here is the infamous Goo. This is a guy that I first met while locked up, a guy who received 210 years in prison, and a guy who had some very bad charges, a really high profile case, and also had 6 jailhouse snitches going to court to testify against this dude. And there's 2 other things that I want to share with you guys in relation to this dude, Goo. Not only did I just recently run across this guy's mugshot, I've also gotten in contact with him. And the best way that I can tell you guys is I've pretty much become like a prison pen pal for this guy, Aaron, aka Google. And I want to share with you guys this very first and only email that I've received from this guy. I took a chance, emailed this guy, not knowing if he would even receive this, not even knowing where or how he was doing. But he did actually respond to me, and I want to share this email with y'all. Joe, dude, how are things going? Of course I remember you. I was actually just talking about you a month or so ago. An individual in here was talking to me about not being able to do anything worthwhile with his life now that he is locked up. You got to imagine everybody who is surrounding this guy right now is probably just like him, never going home. I told him about you and how you were writing comics and mailing them out, and how some of them even got published. You took your incarceration as an opportunity to find more talents than you ever knew that you had, and was able to reach out from the jail to make contributions to the world. I'm actually doing all right. I got in trouble at Augusta. Augusta is another maximum security prison here in the state of Virginia. I actually got in trouble at Augusta a little over 4 years ago and have been here at Sussex 1 since. And Sussex 1, that's only one step below Red Onion in terms of the most maximum security prisons here in this state. I work in the kitchen making decent money as prison jobs go. I don't know if you remember Fred that used to hang out with us at the jail. Fred was actually one of my old cellmates. Actually one of the best cellmates that I ever had. But I seen him a few years ago and he said that he had seen you somewhere. Other than that, I'm about as good as one could hope for in prison. My family really is not doing that well. My old man had a really bad stroke earlier this year, and my mother has just had a hard time finding work. My daughters have had it real rough. I'll tell you that story later. It has a little to do with why I got in trouble at Augusta. I can only imagine, and when I find out what exactly happened, I'll definitely be sharing that with you guys. I can't tell you how nice it is to hear from you and also find out that you're doing well. One thing that you learn while being locked up is that everyone says that they're gonna write you when they go home, but very rarely does that actually happen. But to hear from an old friend that I was not expecting to ever hear from, it gave me a good ending to a very long day. I worked 17 hours in the kitchen. Well, dude, I gotta end this note. I have to get up at 2 in the morning to go to work. I hope to hear from you and have a friend to be able to talk to. Good to hear from you, Aaron, aka Google. When I first wrote to this guy, I did not tell him anything about After Prison Show. I did tell him, hey, look, I've been home for 3+ years now and I found some success for myself. I was curious to know how you were doing. That's why I wanted to send you this email. Maybe I could become a pen pal, maybe give you some books, maybe even put a little bit of money on your commissary. I can imagine you probably have no one. And that's gonna sound really crazy because I'm getting ready to share with you guys the news article about why this guy is serving 210 years. A jury has recommended 210 years in prison for a Portsmouth man found guilty of robbing and beating a 65-year-old woman in her house last year. Aaron, aka Google, was convicted on Friday of aggravated malicious wounding, robbery, statutory burglary, abduction for pecuniary benefit, I'm guessing pecuniary is money, grand larceny, unauthorized use of a vehicle, destruction of property, and wearing a mask in public. Something that I told you guys is a felony here in the state of Virginia, as well as several firearms and conspiracy charges. Again, this dude had a super high profile case. This news article just goes on to paint this dude as the monster that he was during the time when he did this. Now, this guy was suffering from a drug addiction problem when he did this with 2 other co-defendants. One received 31 years, the other received 44 years. Goo received 210 years because he didn't take the plea deal and he fought his case. And also had 6 jailhouse snitches go to court to testify against him as well. So it's really my hope by reaching out to this guy Goo that I'm able to share with all of you some insight on what it's like to know that you will never be a part of the After Prison Show, of any sort of After Prison Show. What is it like? I mean, how do you cope with knowing that you're gonna spend the rest of your life in prison? And obviously it sounds like Goo is doing just that. Again, I'll be very eager to be able to share with you guys more about him and his situation when I am able to do so. Moving on to the second person to make this list. If you thought 210 years was something, well, you ain't heard nothing yet. I actually ran across this person on a prison pen pal website. It was me writing to Goo, realizing that I am actually now somebody's prison pen pal. And with that realization, somehow I ended up on this prison pen pal website. I ran across this next person, Douglas Waters. And I think I'm gonna start by just sharing with you his prisoner pen pal ad. And this, folks, is absolutely crazy. Hello. Well, I would like to start by thanking you for your time. I go by Doug. I'm 34 years old. I'm serving a total of 1,800 years. You know, when I first read this, I thought that this was a typo, but then I looked at this man's release date, which is stated right here on this prisoner pen pal ad, and it said, I don't even know why they have his release date on here. This man's release date is June 7th, 3803. I don't want to sit here and make a lot of jokes about the amount of time that this dude received, but for the love of God, in the year 3803, human beings probably won't even be colonizing Earth anymore. The sun will have probably gone into a supernova state by then, and the entire universe will have then been wiped out. I've been watching a lot of space documentaries when I'm going to sleep at night. I've been learning a thing or two. Why would this dude have a release date, and why the hell would they put it up here? Can you imagine, when you're in prison, you get an update sheet every single year. And the reason for that update sheet tells you whether you've gained good time or you've lost good time. And all of that is based upon if you've gotten in trouble or if you've gone a year without getting in trouble. But every year, I mean, could you imagine? This dude, Doug, is sitting here looking at an update sheet every year with a release date that God only knows where humans are going to be at by the time this date actually comes. 3803? I just want to do something real quick. In the state of Virginia, you serve 85% of your time. They sentenced this man, I'm going to try to do some math. Y'all bear with me. 85% times 1,800 equals. If this man were to never get in trouble throughout the entire 1,800 years of his prison term and prison sentence, if he never got in trouble, never lost any good time, this guy would actually end up serving 1,530 years. He would actually gain 270 years in good time. That is damn crazy to think about. And I'm sure a lot of you are wondering what the hell this dude did to get sentenced to 1,800 years. He got sentenced to this for 2 capital murder charges and a robbery charge. This guy Doug's Prisoner Pen Pal ad goes on to say that he's not looking for a pity party or handouts. He's earned his spot in life. Life is not fair to anyone. I have been through a lot, so I can give advice in things. I don't know everything or even close to it. Life is a learning process. So it pretty much seems like this dude has accepted the fact that he's never coming home. I was able to find a news article in relation to this guy's story. It says a teenager charged with murdering his 2 Augusta County housemates, then fleeing to Florida where he tried to run down a police officer, will be tried in Virginia first. He killed 2 people and tried to run over a cop, and because of that, he ended up getting 1,800 years. Moving on to number 3, if you thought 210 years was crazy, if you thought 1,800 years was crazy, folks, we are about to get into light years. That's right. You know, the closest star to the Earth is Centauri B, or Centauri A, or Alpha Centauri. That's what it is. The closest star to our solar system is Alpha Centauri, which is 4-point-something light years away from the Earth. And at the fastest speed that we're going right now, which is this little Voyager satellite thing that's past Pluto right now, that thing is traveling at like 12 or 17,000 kilometers an hour. That's the fastest thing that we have right now. And at that top speed, it would take that Voyager probe or satellite 70,000 years to get to Alpha Centauri. Again, folks, moving on to number 3, we're about to get into some light years. Oklahoma City. A judge who said he was weary of criminals serving only a portion of their time sentenced a man convicted of some really bad charges against kids. This judge, who was weary of criminals only serving a portion of their prison sentence, sentenced this guy right here, Charles Scott Robinson, on December 23rd, 1994, to 30,000 years. You know, at that point, it just makes me wonder, like, why don't you just say life? The remainder of your natural life, you are never going home. And I guess the only reason to me personally that makes sense as to why they wouldn't just get sentenced to life is because if they went back on appeal, maybe they could get that life sentence overturned. Well, how the hell are you going to get 30,000 years overturned? You know, I've also oftentimes heard it said that, you know, people with these horrible type of charges get less time than people like me, drug offenders. Well, that certainly is not the case for this Charles Scott Robinson, who received 30,000 years. You know, could you imagine being locked up with somebody with that amount of time? Hey, yo, I can't do this, man. I can't prison. I am not built for prison. I can't do this time. It's gonna be okay. Hey, Tommy, what are you crying about? No need to cry over the spilt milk, the milk that is spilt. Yes, it is prison. We are locked up. All jails are the same, but you know, it's gonna be okay. How much time do you have anyways? God, I can't believe it. They gave me 6 months. 6 months, you know how many days that is? How many hours is 6 months? How many minutes? How many seconds is it? So forever. 6 months. I got 6 months. Months. You've got 6 months. I've got 30,000 years. 30,000 years. Not 1 time, not 3 times, 2 times. 15 times, 2 times, 30,000 years. You crying over 6 months. You know, if you ever meet somebody while locked up who was sentenced to light years, 30,000 years, something like that, 1,000 years. Oh, you don't even got to ask what they locked up for. You might as well not even ask, because you ain't going to want to know. You was not going to want to know. Coming in at number 4 also took place in Oklahoma. Boy, you do not want to do anything wrong in Oklahoma, and don't you be having no bad charges. You better never have no horrible charges to start with, but you definitely don't never want to get in trouble in Oklahoma. They giving out light years. But again, coming in at number 4 also takes place in Oklahoma, also involves some really bad charges. But this involves 2 people. Wayne Allen McLaurin and Darren Bentleford Anderson received a total of 32,500 years. And the story I found about this pair says that this was the stiffest punishment in memory for a Tulsa County case not involving murder. Tulsa is in Oklahoma, right? Cody! Now, another crazy thing to mention about this pair is that they both went back to court trying to get some kind of appeal, possibly saying that they were sentenced excessively. I don't honestly think that they were. If you've got these type of horrible charges that these two had, I don't want to get into specifics. If you guys want to look up the pair, again, it's Alan Wayne McLaurin and Darren Benelford Anderson. Forget these two. But I'm guessing they went back on appeal saying that they were sentenced excessively. And they actually won their appeal. They both did. Because both of their sentences were reduced by a total of 500 years apiece. So if we took 32,500 years, split that in two, that's 16,250 years. Well, now they're only doing 15,750 years apiece. The final person to make this list and coming in at number 5, this does not take place in the United States. And this also took place quite a long time ago. July 27th, 1989 in Thailand. And the crazy thing about this is this doesn't involve no horrible type charges or horrible in terms of what you would think about as horrible type charges. This doesn't even involve anybody losing their life. So that makes this even that much more crazy. Kamoy Thip. I don't even know why I'm gonna try to pronounce this. I'm gonna put this person's name right up here on the screen. Kamoy Chamoy Thipwayeso. That's the best I could do. And 7 others were found guilty of corporate fraud. Thipwayeso, the leader, was sentenced to, that's a lot of numbers, was sentenced to 141,078 years in prison for corporate fraud. Boy, they do not be playing no games over there in Thailand. Isn't that one of them countries where they'll cut your arms and your legs and your feet off if you steal something? Oh, you stole something. We're going to have an ear for that. What you mean an ear? Take it. Okay. At least I ain't losing a hand. And forgive me if I'm completely off about that, but I've heard about some of them countries where they'll cut your limbs off if you steal something. And God forbid you do anything worse. Get caught with some of the devil's lettuce over there in Thailand if you want to. Hey, Cody! Is weed legal in Thailand? Thipwayeso, wife of it was a woman too. Wife of a high-ranking member of the Royal Thai Air Force and an employee of Petroleum Authority of Thailand, started a chit fund. What the hell is a chit fund? Oh, the story goes on to say, a chit fund is a type of savings scheme commonly practiced in India, where it has been crucial for the financial development of the Kerala state. The chit fund, organized by Thipwayeso, was crafted to seem like an oil share with high returns. So basically they was doing their Bernie Sanders. They was doing their Wolf of Wall Street. They was running a Ponzi scheme. And for that, the punishment was 141,078 years in prison. My God. Could you imagine? Like what year will it be? In 141,078 years from now, what year will it be? Folks, I wanted to share with you these top 5 craziest prison sentences that I've ever heard about. And I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If so, please leave a like and a comment, letting me know what you thought about any or all of this. Or if you know of anybody who's received more time than Thipwayeso with that 141,078 years. As always, until next time, enjoy life, the free world. Never take a moment for granted and make the most of every day. Peace!